There are 5 habits that separate high-value men from everyone else, and nobody talks about them. Not the fitness pages, not the motivation accounts, not the self-improvement content you've already scrolled through 100 times. Because these habits don't look impressive from the outside. They're not loud. They don't make good highlight reels. But they are the reason why certain men walk into a room and something shifts. The energy changes. People pay attention without knowing why. Respect shows up before a single word is spoken. You've felt it before, in someone you know, someone you've watched from a distance and couldn't quite explain what it was about them. It wasn't their money, it wasn't their clothes. It was these habits, quietly running underneath everything, built over time, in private, in ways most people never think to look. And I've spent a long time studying exactly what they are. What I found was not what I expected, because it was never one big thing. It was never a single decision or a dramatic turning point. It was small, quiet, consistent habits that most people never talk about, because from the outside, they're almost invisible. The first one, and almost nobody talks about this, is that high-value men treat their body like a statement, not a fitness goal, not a look they're going for, a statement about who they are and what they're willing to do when nobody is watching. The way they carry themselves tells you something before they even open their mouth. There's a weight to how they move, a control, a presence you can feel in the same room. And that doesn't come from a 30-day program. It doesn't come from motivation. It comes from a decision they made at some point to stop treating their physical self as an afterthought. When Michael B. Jordan was preparing for Creed, he didn't just get in shape the way most actors do. He didn't follow a clean diet plan and do photogenic workouts. He trained with real professional fighters. He trained like someone who needed the thing to be real. Not convincing, real. That difference matters more than most people understand, because what came through on screen wasn't just a physique. It was the cost of that physique. The audience could feel how much it took. You can't fake that in a performance. Cameras pick it up. People pick it up. When discipline goes deep enough, it stops looking like effort. It becomes identity. It shows up in your posture, in how you enter a room, in how people respond to you before you've said a single word. Here's the thing most men miss. The body is not separate from the mindset. The way you treat your physical self is a direct reflection of the standards you hold in every other area of your life. When that standard is high, people feel it. They can't always explain why, but they feel it. So ask yourself honestly, what does your body say about you right now? Not what you want it to say, what it actually says. The second habit is where most men quietly fail, and they don't even realize it's happening. There is a massive difference between a reaction and a response. A reaction is automatic. It comes out before you decide to let it. Someone pushes you and you push back. Something goes wrong and your face tells the whole story before you've processed a single thought. A response is chosen. It's the product of a man who has already decided in advance how he's going to carry himself and then actually does it when it matters. And what I've noticed consistently across the men who are actually operating at a high level is that when pressure comes, they go quieter, not louder. Their face doesn't broadcast everything happening inside. Their voice slows down. They take up space without taking over the room. They pause before they speak. From the outside, it looks like calm, but it isn't just calm. It's architecture. It's something built over a long time by doing the internal work before the moment ever arrived. Watch Michael B. Jordan during the Black Panther press run. Interview after interview, journalists pushing friction, comparing him to others, challenging his choices, looking for a reaction. He just answered. No defensiveness, no performance, no visible effort to hold himself together. He seemed genuinely settled, in the way that only happens when a man has already had every version of that conversation with himself in private and already knows where he stands. That's the actual habit. It's not about controlling yourself in the moment. It's about preparing yourself so thoroughly, so consistently, that when the moment comes, and it always comes, it doesn't own you. Most men wait until they're already triggered to start trying to manage the reaction. By then, it's too late. The damage is already happening. Third, and this one is quiet, easy to miss, but once you see it, you'll notice it everywhere. High-value men move in silence. Not because it's a strategy, not because they read it in a quote somewhere and thought it sounded good, because they figured something out that most people learn too late. Announcing a goal feels like progress. The dopamine hits before you've done a single thing. People respond, you feel seen, and something in your brain quietly marks it as a step forward, even though nothing has actually moved. So the urgency fades, the fire burns a little lower, and you're left with a goal you've talked about so many times it doesn't even excite you anymore. I've seen this pattern over and over. Men who talk loudly about what they're building, and men who just build it. And more often than not, the ones doing the most talking are the ones with the least to show. The ones who are serious, they're obsessed with doing first,
talking later.
Maybe. There's always a period in every serious person's journey where nothing is visible from the outside. No results yet, no signal, no external confirmation that any of it is working. It looks like failure to the people watching. It can feel like failure on the inside too. And what separates the ones who come through that period from the ones who give up isn't talent. It isn't even belief always. It's the ability to work in the dark, to keep going without applause, to trust the process even when the process looks identical to standing still. When was the last time you worked on something that nobody knew about? Not something you posted about, not something you asked for feedback on, something you were just quietly building. That answer says more than you think. Fourth, and this one is not comfortable to hear. High-value men study pressure. They don't just survive it, they study it. Most people, when something goes wrong, want to move on as fast as possible, process it emotionally, file it under, "that was rough," and get back to feeling normal. The instinct is to put distance between yourself and the painful moment. The men I've studied, across different fields, different backgrounds, different levels of success, they do the opposite. They go back. They replay the moment without ego. They sit with the discomfort instead of running from it. They ask hard, honest questions. What did I feel right before that happened? What did I miss? What story was I telling myself that turned out not to be true? They treat their worst moments like footage, like data. Not something to be ashamed of, something to understand. And over time, that practice changes something fundamental in how they handle difficulty. Pressure starts to feel less like a threat and more like a familiar room, a room they've been in before, a room they know how to move through because they've already walked every corner of it in their mind. That's not a personality type. It's not something you're born with. It's a habit, built slowly, one honest review at a time. Most people are not willing to look at themselves that honestly. It's uncomfortable. It requires you to be wrong about yourself in ways that hurt. But that discomfort is exactly the price of growth, and the men who are willing to pay it consistently, they end up operating at a level that the ones who avoid it never reach.
Fifth habit, the most counterintuitive of all 5. High-value men are willing to be still. Not lazy, not passive, still. Intentionally, deliberately, still. There's a version of busyness that looks like ambition, but has almost nothing to do with real progress. Always in the next meeting, always on to the next goal, always consuming something, a podcast, a course, a video, another conversation about what you're going to do. It feels productive. Sometimes it genuinely is. But what I've noticed is that constant motion, when it never ever stops, is often just avoidance wearing the mask of ambition. Because sitting alone with no phone and no input and nothing to do forces you to face whatever is actually going on inside, and most men are not ready for that conversation with themselves. So they keep moving, keep consuming, keep staying busy enough that the quiet never gets a chance to arrive. The men who are operating with real clarity protect their silence. They carve out space where nothing is happening on purpose, not to rest, not to scroll, to process, to think, to hear what they actually believe when all the noise is gone. Their best decisions don't come from more information. They come from sitting long enough with what's already there. And that only happens in the quiet that most people are too afraid to sit in. Here's what ties all 5 of these together. None of them are complicated. None of them require money, connections, or a perfect situation. But most men will hear all 5, understand all 5, and change absolutely nothing. Not because they don't care, not because they're capable, because real change requires a specific kind of honesty. The kind that makes you look at yourself clearly, without excuses, and admit that the gap between who you say you want to be and how you're actually moving through your days is wider than you've been willing to admit. That honesty is uncomfortable, and uncomfortable is exactly where the work begins. You already know which one of these 5 hit you the hardest. You felt it while you were watching. You felt a slight shift, a moment of recognition. That's the one that's waiting for you. Don't ignore it this time. Tell me in the comments, which habit do you need to build the most right now? Be honest, not for me, for yourself. These are the conversations I actually care about on this channel, and I read every single one. If this video made you stop and think, share it with one man in your life who needs to hear it. Not to grow this channel, because that person deserves to hear it too. And if you want to keep going deeper, real psychology, real habits, no filler, subscribe and stay close. What's coming next on this channel will go even further than this. You don't want to miss it.